Welcome to the Marriage Can Win show. We are your relationship experts. I'm Eric, and this is my beautiful, lovely wife, Dr. Sakisha Heilig.
Yes, here at Marriage Can Win, we educate, empower, and encourage couples to embrace that marriage can win, especially when you focus on three key areas: communication skills, you're monitoring your money management skills, and enhancing your intimacy skills. And tonight we have with us a dynamic couple that's here to empower you. It's a talk and it's a topic that's much needed in the community. We have a lot of people that are suffering in silence. Due to the pandemic, we have people that are dealing with loss. They've lost loved ones to COVID and things of that sad nature. But we have an amazing couple with us, and that's going to talk to you about how to find that peace in the pain. Because I know a lot of you out there are listening and say, hey, I'm struggling with this, I'm struggling with that. You asked, we listen. So we bought a dynamic couple to talk to you this evening.
But before we get started, I want all of you out there to share this broadcast or start a watch party. And let us know, put in the chat what city and state that you're located right now.
Yes.
And like during the show, if you have any questions, by all means, go ahead and type it into the chat below.
Yes. All right, so we're excited. Are you ready?
I am ready.
All right, so tonight we have with us Fulton and Cortne Smith. They are they're a dynamic couple, and we're going to have them share with you a little bit about themselves. So Fulton and Cortne, do you want to take like a couple minutes and share with our listeners and let them know who you are and what you do, and just why they should be so excited about the knowledge and the wisdom that's about to come forth tonight?
Ooh, excited. Okay. Well, first of all, we want to thank you all for inviting us here to share this at this particular time, because it is very needed now and people can't get out and express their pain. So I think it's wonderful that you all are putting this topic out there. I think I'm gonna let Fulton start with the intro, because usually I do all the talking.
Oh, wow.
You get to tell a little bit about us.
Okay. Yes. I was married for 32 years. My wife, before she passed, and Courtney, she was married for 20 years. And her husband passed. Matter of fact, her husband passed and my wife passed in the same year. And we met in 2012, and 45 days later, wonderful thing happened. We got married. And we was going strong ever since, I brought a grown daughter into the relationship, and she is 30, and I got her three bonus kids, 2 boys and 1 girl. I love that word, bonus.
Oh yeah.
The son is 30 to 26, and the additional daughter, she's 22. She's the baby.
Yeah, she's the baby.
She's the spoiled.
Oh man.
Yes, and now we got a 1-year-old grandchild.
Yeah, we do.
Oh wow.
That's mine. Nobody else but mine. That's mine. Okay. There now. But anyway, we have been. I love doing what I'm doing. I love this mobile kind of work. I've been doing this since the early 80s. I love what I'm doing. I'm passionate about going out, being of service to my community. I'm passionate about, my customer and being satisfied with what I'm doing. I'm more passionate about if I'm satisfied with what I'm doing. And I just love doing what I'm doing. I have, a beautiful wife. She supports me in my business, and we have and even an event planning.
Yeah, because when we first met, I was doing an event planning.
Oh.
That was one of the things, but how God will tell you you're not doing enough.
Yeah.
You're not doing really what he assigned you to do. That was too easy. We were out there having fun. We were doing date nights. We were planning couples trips. And he was like, no, I didn't send you all through what you went through and brought y'all together just for y'all to sit out here and have parties.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So it was like, I want to say when did I have surgery? 2014. Yeah, I had surgery like in 2014 for my job. I was like out for 8 months. And you know how God will deal with you. 8 is that real number when he'll start something all new for you. And it was like during those 8 months we were out, he was like, okay, y'all need to do something different. Y'all need to do something besides just have events. And actually, by the time I got through surgery, we couldn't do events and parties anymore anyway, because I couldn't do all the heavy lifting and all that stuff. Because with the events, we were doing catering and all of that stuff. So God has a way to already have something in place when he is moving you to something. Yes. So a lot of times when we are transitioning from something, we don't recognize that God has already set us up.
Yes.
So it really was out of our need how this began. We were really just trying to find something, an outreach ministry that we could both get involved in, that we both just love. And what happened is we said, you know what? Create what we want to be our outreach ministry. And that is actually how our business began, as an outreach ministry, reaching out to people, going to the hospital and talking to people who had grieved, friends who had lost somebody. And it just began as an outreach for us to talk to people. So it's amazing how you're looking for something and they say, create what you want to exist. So that's kind of like what we did. We created it.
Now that's powerful, right?
Yes.
There. Create what you want to exist.
If it doesn't exist, create
it.
That's good. That's awesome.
That is awesome.
But you know what? I'm sure this is the time where I'm sure a lot of people out there, they need somebody that has some experience with grief and can help talk with them and give them some encouragement to get over it.
Now, one of the things that for couples that are dealing with grief, it could be physically exhausting, it can be emotionally exhausting. So what is your recommendation to those couples out there, or someone that may have recently lost a loved one, that may not be a spouse, it may be a family member, but they're struggling to be able to get, I'd say, I hate to say get back to normal, but you mean, get back on track, if that makes sense?
Yeah. And I think what it is, a lot of times we jump back into what we were doing. We become very busy, whether it's busy mentally planning a whole lot of things or mentally busy physically. And the thing that I tell people, when you feel so exhausted mentally and physically, what you need to do is sit down and be still. You need to really just sit down and be still. And that's a lot of the times we don't give ourselves the time. A lot of jobs, they give you family leave, they give you grief leave. We don't take it because we want people to think, oh, okay, it's not bothering us. And right now, during the pandemic, when we are so isolated, and really don't have to just jump back into things. And I know it's not somebody we can really reach out and touch. There are people, this is the time you need to be talking to people in that silent time to get some direction, get some strategies on how to slow down. One of the greatest things that I see that hurt people when they've lost people, they try to become two people. They try to become the spouse that they lost or the loved one they lost and make up for that for everybody else. And then they don't deal with their own individual grief. Like I said, they get busy. They get trying to make sure everything is normal for everybody else. And they don't even set a time aside for them to even begin to grieve themselves.
And that's real true, because that's where I was when after 30 years, I lost my wife. And that's what I was doing. I stayed busy all the time. I stayed constantly busy. I didn't want to slow down. I didn't want to give a chance. I didn't want to give myself a chance to think about anything. And I love saying this guy, staying in the gym, working out all the time. And that's the beautiful part about this relationship between my wife and myself, because she really slowed me down. She really pulled me to the side and had me to sit down and think what was going on there. Go through my meditation, go through my rehab, what we're doing. When I rehab me, her together, just learn. I learned so much being this beautiful woman. I learned a lot. And that taught me how to rehabilitate myself, how to understand that. And how I rehabilitate myself is talking about it, because a lot of men, boy, I really get my blood pressure really get up high about this, because there's a lot of men, I'm speaking for men now, a lot of men don't want to talk about this. A lot of men, they rather go do other things to relieve the stress. And a lot of the way we go is not a good way. And so Women's is y'all more open. Y'all come together, y'all pull together, y'all talk about it, but we're not. And we need to get out and mingle with people. And we can't do it now because but you still like we doing. You know, we get on the computer, get on the phone, have a group chat on the computer, or whatever. But we need to talk about this because a lot of men is falling sick. A lot of men is leaving this planet because they have so much tension on their chest. And I can't stress it more. I can't stress it no more. We need to pull together and talk and get this stuff out of our chest because we're doing a lot of stuff that we shouldn't be doing emotionally wise.
You know, that is so true. I think it's just a man thing, an ego thing that we always want to project that we're the strong ones. We can handle everything. And especially if if something that happens very traumatic in the family, you know, everybody kind of looks to the man to be the one strong and to stand up and for everyone to lean on the man. And then the man is like, well, who am I going to lean on? But we don't want to show that vulnerability. We don't want to show that we're actually being affected, you know, and it ends up being detrimental to our health.
So is it safe to say that, you know, even as wives, making sure our homes are a safe space for our spouses so that they can just be themselves and feel free to be vulnerable, because the husbands are carrying so much weight and feel like they have to be like Atlas and carry the world on their shoulders, not recognizing, hey, we got your back. This is that time where you're going through that. I have your back. Just, it's okay to just, you know, if you need to cry, if you need some time alone, whatever the process is, but let's talk about it. But you kind of have to be mindful. I think some wives may be concerned that maybe they pushed too hard. What are your thoughts on that, Courtney?
I think you hit it on the head when you have to make the atmosphere for it. You don't have to constantly say, tell me what you think and tell me what's on your mind, because then you're making them think, okay, I got to come up with something because I know this question is going to be asked to me. And you just have to make that environment there where they feel safe, where that dialogue can happen. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what happens a lot of times. That environment is not created for men like it is for women. We have plenty of groups where it is great for us to talk. We get to chat. Sometimes we have too many groups where we talk too much about things that go on, and it comes back on us. But the thing is, men need to find that safe haven within their households, especially if they can't express themselves like that to their men counterparts. Okay. And I say that because actually how me and my husband met is because my husband was getting on his brother's nerves when he lost his wife because he was calling him so much. Yeah. And I was actually his brother's coworker, and me and my husband had lost our spouses same month, same year. And his brother was like, hey, can you talk to my brother? He is like getting on my nerves. So it's like, we don't understand just because we're going through something, another person that has never experienced, a lot of times they aren't capable to understand. Yeah. And it's too much pressure on that person. So we have to put them in the right environment, in the right situation to actually handle that.
Okay. Now, you know what I was wondering? Now, this is a question that I have, and it's a concern because I know I was one of the ones that would always be there for everyone in my family, you know, my immediate family, if there was a loss. But there's that thin line because you're wondering what topics are acceptable to talk about and what's unacceptable. So I think that could have people walking on eggshells around someone who's experienced the loss because they're afraid of hurting them, offending them, stirring up feelings. It's kind of that degree of uncertainty, if that makes sense.
It does, but I think the thing is really no such thing as off limits. It's just we open up the door. It's kind of, you know how you call somebody and just say, hey, I'm checking on how are you feeling, what you're doing. It's just like you give a blanket question and you allow them to express anything that they have and they want to express to you. My only limitations is not to tell people how you feel, what you think about what they say. Don't judge any part of the conversation, because once you do that, then that shuts the conversation down. So once you open up the conversation for them to be free and open about what it is they want to say, allow allow them to be free and open about it, because then that means they're really having an opportunity to vent and get something off their chest that probably they really needed to. So I believe the biggest part about it is when you're calling somebody or checking on somebody, don't have this expectation of what they're going to say, and definitely don't have an opinion or a feeling about it. Just allow them to vent without you feeling like you got to fix it or change it. Allow them to just vent it out, because a lot of times people just need to have a moment where they can just vent everything. And then once they got it out, they're in a happier space. And I believe right now, especially going through this, people don't know who they can talk to, because they can't just go to a certain place and have that conversation. Like you can't just go to your pastor, or you can't go to a group meeting. So everything is, so who can I have that conversation with? So I think people just need a venting ear without having an opinion or a judgment back from it. So I don't say it's about anything that's off limit. Just don't provide your opinion and feelings to it.
And you know, that's very important. That's very important, you know, to add to my wife, because we need a listening ear.
Mm-hmm.
We need a listening ear. We need a listening mind. You know, they sit down, because it's because each grief is different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we cannot come into a situation and say, well, I understand how you feel, but you don't know how they love their wife, or how they love their husband, how they love their brother, how they love their sister. Each individual love different. So we have to kind of be a listening ear, kind of blend that stuff in. Then once we sit down and listen at what they got to say, and just blend that stuff right in with them, then kind of chime our way in. Then that's how that works. We can't go in and say, I got your back. Anything you need, call me. No, that it don't work that way. It's not.
So what is a good response when someone tells you, you know, that their loved one has passed away? I mean, other than, you know, sending condolences. I mean, what is it? What is a good response?
Well, I mean, you send the condolences, and then you give them a little bit of space first, so they can assess actually how they feel. Because I think what happens when someone initially passes away, they have so many voices already around them.
Okay.
Especially, you know, at the funeral, and I mean, people are still having graveyard services. So everybody has an opinion. Everybody's giving their story. So it's really those first 30 days after that day is when somebody's wanting somebody else to talk to, because everybody else is kind of waded away, disappeared, and they don't want to hear about it anymore. They tired of you talking about it. Yeah. So they need somebody so they can say, hey, I woke up this morning and I was really missing my spouse, or I was angry this morning because I had to do something that I would have never had to do before. You know, just the simple things. Or, hey, you know, it was raining outside, and normally we go sit out on the porch together and listen to the rain. You know, it's just those simple memory things that they want to talk to and relate to somebody without somebody pouring their memories of that person. So that's the key. Don't be so quick on trying to tell them how much you miss them or how you understand. Allow that person to do the expressing. So if you call somebody, just say, hey, I'm checking on you because I know it's been a few days. You know, what's going on with you? Do you need me to take you out? You know, how are you feeling? What's going on? You know, it's that balance.
Okay. Now, so what is your suggestion for someone that's like struggling to express themselves? Because like Fulton said, sometimes for men, they harness or they keep it in because they feel the need to be strong for everyone else around them. And they don't feel comfortable just, you know, being vulnerable in that moment. Do you have a specific suggestion that you offer to clients that say, hey, you know, I know this person just lost their spouse, but you know, I don't know if they're just acting like everything is wrong. You can tell it's bothering them, but they're not saying anything.
Well, my approach is, like I said, we talked about, I kind of blend myself into that individual. I don't be pushy, and I don't be pushy with physically, mentally, or spiritually.
Okay.
I sit right beside that individual, in front of that individual, and just sit there and meditate with her or him, and just hold hands or whatever the situation. Because I just want them, when they break their first breath to me, that's when I come. That's when I start doing what I need to do. I don't force anything, because no one don't know how to come to each other. So they'll come to you. You just be there for them. It's just like I make it.
Well, like for you, it was the gym. That was your expression. A lot of men, it might be the gym. It might be, outside walking. I think everybody feels somebody has to talk to you. They're not telling me what's going on, but they might be having a conversation with God. So I introduced journaling.
Okay.
I introduced coloring books, dancing, singing, other ways of healthy expression. And let me say healthy expression. I'm not encouraging nobody to go start drinking, nobody to start doing drugs, nobody to become an addict. I know a lady who became a hoarder.
Oh, wow.
Because she set up and she shopped all night, because, she was that was her way of, doing something, because that means she knew every morning somebody was going to come to her house, her door with some packages. So it was, that conversation, that company, but it was like to the point you're ordering 2 or 3 things of the same thing and you had never opened them. So be careful, even when you think you're doing something that's good, when you're doing it in obsession, that's when it becomes unhealthy. Some people like to cook to express themselves. So just make sure, and like I say, I'll say healthy again. Is something that is not going to cause you harm, whether it's financial harm, like becoming a hoarder, or even, when you become a hoarder, it's affecting your health, because if you don't ever open all that stuff, you're talking about all those packages and all that stuff in your house, where it just becomes unhealthy for you. So it's all of those things you have to think about. You cannot become a person where you feel like you got to go out every night, because I think a lot of people during the pandemic are struggling because they never learned how to sit down. They never ever grieved to begin with. So they was like, okay, as long as I keep busy, keep people around me, I'll never feel lonely. I'll never feel like I never was without my spouse, because I always got somebody to talk to. And by the time I get home, I'm dead tired.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Now you brought up a really good point, because that's one of the things I was actually thinking about some of the different behaviors that people might display when they're going through the grief process that are like atypical. Like Fulton mentioned, he was into the gym, and I believe Beth was on earlier, and she said, you know what? She just worked all the time, never took a day off, and gave herself an opportunity to grieve. And when you think about it, everybody's like walk is going to be different. So it's kind of hard to say, look for certain things, but it's just, I know you see like, there could be a lot of crying, being very emotional, but I was thinking about, can you think of any other signs and symptoms, that they might display?
I can actually think of one thing that almost everybody who grieves has always said, I got to be strong for other people.
Yes.
Yeah.
I got to be strong for other people. And that is the thing that hurts us the most, because we never start our process. We are so worried about how everybody else feels. Like if it's the mother, they're worried about how the kids are going to feel. But the thing is, you need to be weak in front of these other people, because you need to teach your kids how to mourn. You need to teach your kids how to cry, so they don't get caught in just mourning. There's a difference between somebody mourning somebody and grief. And if, in scripture, they actually hired mourners. Mourners are nobody but professional people that just sit around and cry and mourn. It's kind of like getting caught in a pity party with a group of people. So that's the difference. When you're grieving, it's a process. It's a process. You're healing, you're becoming healthy. But if you don't do that, you don't allow other people to see you processing it. A lot of times you catch other people in that same place with you. So you need to be weak. You need to cry. You need to actually have a moment where you break down, you let loose, you express yourself. And I believe that is the most detrimental thing that people are doing to themselves. I got to be strong. Wow. I got to keep it all together. I can't let people see me cry. And like my husband said, especially men, but women are doing it for their kids. Women are doing it when they're mother lose their father because they're being so strong for their mother that they don't allow themselves to grieve the loss of their father. So it's a lot of different people in different stages because you're being so strong for the other person. You have not allowed yourself to grieve in fear of how you're going to make the other person feel. But now you might be throwing the wrong message to that other person and like, okay, well, maybe I need to stop, being so emotional about it. Where both of you all just really need to sit down and have that conversation and cry together and vent together and say, okay, this is how we feel and this is all right. This is natural. So I tell everybody, stop being strong. Stop professing this strong mentality that we have, that we got to be strong about everything. Because if we never allow ourselves to be weak, we never actually see where the grief is causing us hurt. Because we're being so strong on the outside with this facade that is actually, like you were talking about, that physical thing that goes on. It's actually hurting us in the inside because mentally we are strained, physically we're strained. People end up getting high blood pressure, people end up having heart attacks because they built up all of this stress from this grief and they have no outlet to express it. So when you start seeing people having a whole lot of health conditions after their loved one passes, is because they are not letting it out in a healthy way.
Okay. So I was thinking in terms of I don't think there's really, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's a set time to grieve, because for some people, the process may be one way. For someone else, the process may be different. But what if you notice a friend or family member that's just really, really struggling? I hate to say they can't shake the process, but they're just right here. You know what I mean?
Well, I think what they're doing is they're stuck. I don't even think they've begun the process. And I believe that happens. When we were talking about mourning, they get stuck at the memorial. They get stuck there at the memorial. And you have to really ask yourself, what is keeping them rooted there? Is it some type of shame? Is it some type of regret? Is it some type of survivor's remorse? It's a root of that issue that something else is bigger. Have you ever noticed the people who cry the most and act like they're going to throw themselves in the casket, at a funeral? Sometimes it's the person who know they've done something wrong or did something. So sometimes that person has something so deep in their heart that they can't forgive themselves because they weren't allowed to have that conversation or have that closure with that person. It's usually something rooted in there with that person that they haven't even begun to start grieving. Now, it's a lot of people who like victims, who like to play victims because people will be like, oh, I'm so sorry that happened to you, so they want that cycle to continue to go on forever, not realizing, okay, there is a such thing. It's not that you're going to get over grief. It's not even a such thing that you get past it. It's how you learn how to carry it. And that's the whole thing. It's how you learn how to carry it. And I want to say, I'll give you an example. I think I've said this before. Like, my husband had colon cancer, the same exact place where my husband was getting his chemo treatment. I had to take my daughter in order for her to have her baby. So, I had to go to that same entrance. When we're talking about, 6 years later, she was having a baby. So it takes you back to that place where we can't avoid that. And I think a lot of times in our place, if we stay stuck at the memorial, we can avoid everything else that will have to happen. But it's how we're going to have to carry grief from that point on that's going to rule our lives. And we've allowed that one death to be it for us, like our life ended. And I think that's a mentality of people. My life ended with that person. There's no hope for me. There's no dreams for me. And so when that person has reached that point, they need some actual doctor to talk to them.
Okay.
Because they have begun to the point where they are probably in a place of depression.
Yeah. So, that's really, really important. And for those of you who are just joining us, we're talking about finding peace in the pain. And we've got two amazing grief counselors with us, a husband and wife team who've been doing a phenomenal job helping couples that are struggling or have experienced grief and that are having challenges, either transitioning back into, I don't want to say normal life because it's, but
Well,
just
new
having
normal.
trouble
That's what I have
dealing
to say. It's their new normal.
Yeah, their
It's a
new normal.
And the
Or,
thing is that
I would, like what I always like to say is transitioning from a we to a me.
Okay. I
Okay.
like that. I like that.
Transitioning from a we to a me. So is that new normal, because you got adjusted to a title, you got adjusted to roles, you got adjusted to certain positions and things going on. So it's a transition, but like you say, a lot of times people get stuck in a certain place and they never started that transition.
Just something I want to say something this is very important. And me and my wife, we work on this all the time. The individual that lost a loved one, they don't start breaking down until after the funeral. What I mean by this, they don't start breaking down when all the presence, the human presence has gone. All the human presence is there at the funeral and getting all the love, all the attention and stuff, and that's keeping that individual upbeat. Now, when everything is done, this individual back home, and there's no present in that individual face. That's when they start having problems. And so that's what we need to work on, the present. That's the best rehabilitation to a grieving person is the present. Come and check on the person, not just call on the phone.
Right in the pandemic, we can't show.
But it's still what I'm saying. We have to work on the present. The present is the best therapy.
Yeah, it is.
That's, to me, that's what it is. It's present is the best therapy.
Yeah.
We have to work on that. And you don't have to say anything to them. Just be there.
Yeah, we have to learn how to be quiet and just be in the space.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know that this is much needed because I know I've seen a lot of really, people who are actually coming on Facebook and they're posting about their loved ones. And actually, really my high school class, we've just recently lost a young lady who we grew up with, and one of my best friends, he was actually related to the young lady, and I know they just had the funeral, I think a couple days ago, and she was very popular. She was one of the cheerleaders in high school, and so I'm sure that a lot of people are going through this situation. And her husband actually, he's actually confined to a wheelchair, and they have a child. So I'm like, wow, that family now has lost their, the mother and his wife, and then and a lot of close friends. This is something that that is it's hard, it's bad to say, but it's popular because a lot of people, because of COVID, are experiencing loss with their families and friends. We see it on Facebook all the time with people saying, I've lost my uncle, my cousin, and it's just like, wow, you don't really know what to say, especially when you lose a spouse. That's even really hard to deal with. And so this is much needed, very much needed, what you guys provide.
And
you were talking about COVID, and I know on my Facebook page, I saw where a husband and a wife were actually taken to two separate hospitals. The wife actually recovered and the husband passed. And I believe and the thing is, they were never even able to see each other and give each other their very last words. So COVID is making it where people aren't even able to say a goodbye to their loved ones, or be there at those last breaths and be there at those last moments. So this is where, technology is really, really going to be key, is to connect with people, because they weren't even able to vent to that person. So they're going to have to be able to get a voice somehow to have to say that, whether it's, their phone stayed on, they got to give them a voicemail, whether they got to do a video, whatever it is, so that person can have that last conversation, that in our normal, they would have been able to have sitting at the hospital bed with that person. And I don't think people really realize how important those last words are if you have the chance to do it. I mean, I know people die many ways and that last word is not given to them. But when your spouse is sick and you're unable to show up to the hospital, that's a bad feeling. And what I saw on Facebook, where a lady was showing up at the same time every day, standing outside the hospital. You know, the husband was opening the window so she could pray and sing and worship with him outside the hospital every day. So it is, you know, people are saying, okay, social distance, staying at home is a great thing. Yes, it is. But when you have that disconnect and you cannot at least hold your loved one's hand in that stage, that's putting a whole nother level of grief onto people. That is saying, hey, I can't recapture that. There's nothing that is going to allow me to go back to that. You know, like, there is nothing that is going to change that. So that is something that COVID has brought about that was never an issue. And we really don't have anything that's addressing it. I know I saw some place where hospitals were giving out iPads or tablets so people could have conversations with people. So we really got to make sure people are getting that. That's a needed, that closure that is possible.
Like closure, and they need connection with them. So that's powerful. That is powerful. So do you suggest that for those that may have recently lost a loved one, with technology, perhaps they join like a support group or something like that, so they would be able to vent, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I actually recommend different support groups. I just say beware, like anything, that it's a support group and it don't become a social bitter club.
Okay. I like
you know, where everybody is just woe is me, you know. So that, you know, you got to be careful to make sure it's a club that is supporting you in transitioning, not helping you stay stuck. So if you're going to look, you need to make sure before you recommend somebody to see that people have not been in this same group for 20, 30 years, still talking about the same thing.
Yeah. Gotcha.
That there is some transitioning going on and some growth going on.
Yes.
Yeah. You said something key, and I was thinking about that. I said, not staying stuck. And I think that's really, really important to recognize that there's an expectation for you to transition. And that kind of leads me to a question. So what advice would you have for someone that, say, may have lost a spouse, but they're now ready to transition into the dating world, but unsure of how and when to do so? What's your recommendation for that person?
I would say first start dating yourself.
Yes.
Okay.
And I say that because you're not the same person you were when you started dating your first spouse. You were not. You know, I mean, even if you weren't married but 2 or 3 years, you're still not that same person. So I think people say, oh, well, if it was less than 5 years, you know, you probably still like the same things, do the same things. It's no such thing as a time limit on how long you were married. Everybody's relationship is different. Like my husband said, he was married 32 years. I was married 20 years. We are not the same person we were. And plus, you're not trying to find the same person again.
Right.
That should be the key. Because now if you're still looking for the same person and acting the same way, someplace you didn't grow up in maturity.
You didn't grow. Right.
Who you are now should require a different person to meet you at that place. So don't go to places to find a man at places that you don't even like going to. So that's just like, man, don't go to the opera to find a woman if you don't really like the opera. Don't pretend those things because you want a classical woman or a person like that, but you're never going to go to the ballet or to the opera with this woman ever, except that one time just to woo her. You know, so be real with the places that you go. And second, don't just go to places where just men are, go to places where just women are. Be sincere about where you're going so you can figure out what you like and who you are as a new person first. And then you'll automatically be in the right place to attract the right person. And I think that's what happens. We have said, oh, I'm going to go date, so I need my friend to hook me up with somebody because they know who I am. Bad idea. Just go ahead. Because I know you got an experience with everybody trying to hook you up.
Oh, wow. Very dangerous because we have to start in early dating. You got to know if you're doing it for the right reason. Make sure you don't go in early dating as feeling pity for yourselves, because that can be that nothing come good out of that. you have to make sure, like my wife said, you have to make sure you got your own self understood first. Figure your own self out, what's going on with you first, because nothing come good from that. And I said another word for it, but I'm just saying nothing can come good.
You don't say that.
Nothing, because take your time and get yourself together mentally, physically, and spiritually, and understand what you want ongoing. Just don't go out because you with your wife or your husband for 20-some years or for 7 years, and that's the only person you ever been with. That's a disaster waiting to happen. So just sit back and relax. It's gonna be hard to do, but that's the hardest part, there, to figure out what he or she want for their life for going on.
And then definitely don't start dating because you just feel like, "Ooh, I'm horny. I need sex." I mean, you're gonna find yourself doing some crazy stuff. So don't do that. So that's why I say date yourself. Okay. Date yourself. Make yourself happy, and then as you become happy, you will attract happiness. And because if you go out there trying to date and you're not happy yet, all you're gonna find is a manipulator. Oh, that's all you're gonna find is a bunch of manipulators, because they're gonna manipulate you in that sorrow space. Wow. So that, and I'm telling you, people, because people prey on widows. That is one thing that goes on Instagram. These people pretend, especially men, they pretend they've lost their wives and they prey on widow women. Oh, wow. So there are people who are out there who prey on women who've lost their spouses. So that's why I say don't put yourself in those communities or start even going out till you know you strong and you know who you are. Otherwise, you will be prey for the manipulators that are out there.
Wow. And you know what's so amazing? I never even thought about the fact that someone would do something like that, to prey on widows. And it's frustrating because, this is someone who's experienced a loss, and you're not even really allowing them to grieve. Instead of helping them, you're taking advantage of them.
Yeah. But I mean, you got to think about it. It's a mentality. They feel like, okay, you're at a vulnerable state. This is kind of like a rebound relationship. People jump in and say, hey, I'm going to catch you in a rebound place. And then I can manipulate you into the things that I want you to be, because I know you're going to be lonely. I know I can easily, meet your level of expectations, because they're not going to be real high at this point either. Because you haven't identified what your new expectations are. I can just fit in for the little stuff that you need right now.
Wow. That is something. And I thank you for sharing that, because that's going to be a level of wisdom that going forward, those who may be currently, dealing or going through the grief process, or someone who experiences in the future, they can be mindful of that, because that's something I never, ever would have thought that would happen, that you prey on someone that's lost a spouse.
Wow,
that's pretty cruel. Yeah. That is. But unfortunately, I mean, those people are out there, but we talked a lot about like finding peace in the pain. Can we talk real quickly? I know there are different stages of grief. Can you elaborate on that a little bit for us? Or for our listeners?
I know it's people who say it's 5 stages, people who say it's 8 stages. Me personally, I don't get caught up in those stages. I like to say there is just a strategy to deal with the outcome that you want. I have this formula that I tell people: if you want a desired outcome in the end, there's a specific formula that you need to deal with your situations, your feelings, and your response in order to get that desired outcome to come out in your life. And as you learn how to do that for one moment, then you turn those moments into hours, then you turn those hours into days. The next thing you know, you've accomplished putting your life into this formula to now that you always get your desired outcome. Because the thing is, you go through too many gamuts of emotions for people to say, okay, well, you're going to go through anger, you're going to go through loneliness. But the thing is, you're going to be caught up in a roller coaster. And if you don't have a strategy on how to get off that roller coaster, it'll go way more than 8. It'll go way more than 5, so the thing is, you have to understand that emotions are nothing but something that catches us in a roller coaster if we don't know how to use them in the right way. And that's why I say I just have a basic formula. I say, okay, if you can plug these in, say This is the situation I'm going through. This is how I feel. This is the response I need to give in order to reach my desired outcome.
Oh.
And I say, what is your desired outcome for this moment? This moment when anger comes, what is your desired outcome? So you plug those in and you have to determine, how do I get here strategically? And that's why I say, when you get caught up in these stages, then you begin to put on acts and plays for people, and it becomes so fake because you have not learned a formula or a strategy to keep it going. You know, it's just so temporary. And unfortunately, it's different for every last body. So there is no way that you can say, oh, when you're in this stage, this is the only thing that you can do. No, there's a gamut of things that you can do. And that's why each individual person has to outline what their formula and their strategy for victory is for them.
Wow.
So how do you keep yourself from falling into the emotions when you're counseling someone, because someone's sharing their loss or sharing their pain? I mean, because a lot of times it's almost like an emotional transfer when they're transferring it. I don't necessarily want to say dumping, but it's kind of like they're dumping their emotional baggage onto you. How do you kind of wash yourself from that and, keep yourself from going in on all that negative emotion?
I stay prayed up. I stay very prayed up because I don't allow other people's spirits to take over me, because everybody comes with their own spirit, with their own place. So I stay very prayed up before I get on the call with everybody. I pray with the person while we're on the call together to let the spirit navigate where we're gonna go. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you I don't cry with people now, because I'm an emotional person anyway, because I'm an emotional person anyway. So I mean, I'm gonna already tell you up front, once you start crying, I'm gonna cry with you. But the thing is, crying is a release, is a part of what most people don't want to do anyway. So talking to me is going to automatically make them start crying, because I am going to be digging and pulling layers off to allow them to be transparent, to allow them to be vulnerable. So it's kind of like an onion. You're going to cry too, because you're peeling these layers off this onion, and it's going to make you cry. And the thing
those emotional spots.
And that's why I say at the end, I already know that I have to say, I cannot have clients back to back to back to back. There has to be a moment of, okay, let's come back. Yeah. Let's write out what was discussed for this person. So when we come back together, because I heard, most of the time I hear something that they didn't even know they said. And that's why I say, if I allow the spirit to guide me, they might've said they were angry, but it was really a whole nother emotion, another feeling going on, as long as you stay out of their emotional roller coaster with them. And that's why I say, you got to not let all those spirits jump on you. And I will say that for anybody who's coaching or getting into anybody's emotional space, definitely stay prayed up. Do not allow that, their spiritual baggage to come upon you at that time.
Let me say one thing. I like to deal, and I learned this from this lovely lady I'm sitting beside. I learned this from her. We love to deal with the atmosphere right now.
Okay.
That's what we love to deal with. The atmosphere right now. We don't deal with something happened a day ago. We don't deal with nothing happened 2 hours ago. We deal with atmosphere, what's going on right now, because we get so confused in the after atmosphere, we lose track of what's going on right now. So we try to focus on what's in our present right now, and that's what we need to focus on. That's the very important part, what's going on right now.
Wow.
Yeah. Sometimes we allow people to go too far back on memory lane with us, that they can never really focus on that later part of what they're dealing with right now. So we have to let people not take us so far back.
Gotcha. Because then you're like opening yourself up to lots of distractions and keeps them from moving forward in their healing process. So I think this has been amazing, because I'm learning a lot more about grief, and it's making me even think back to experiences I've had, with my father. Because like you said, there's some people that are held on because they haven't had that closure when they lost a loved one. And it's given me clarity even to this moment, like that's what it is. It was that closure that I needed. So I'm sure that there's someone else out there that's watching this broadcast or is listening and they haven't gotten the closure that they needed. I strongly suggest, because I mean, something with we don't, like I said, we don't know the day nor the hour, but just being able, if you have a loved one that is sick or is in the hospital, if you can utilize technology to stay in contact with those people. There are certain things that we cannot control.
It's true.
We absolutely cannot control, but just being able to recognize what it is that you're dealing with. For those of us that may not have gotten that closure, being able to recognize, okay, that's something I can't change. But going forward, this is how I'm going to process it. When those feelings try to creep up on me, like I know every year around November 2nd, that's when my dad passed away, and my daughter's 18. So this year will be 18 years. And it's literally like clockwork. I don't even look at the calendar, but I know the range of emotions that I feel. And I'm like, I don't know what is going on with me. And then I happened to look at the calendar. It's like, oh my gosh, it was November 2nd. And this is a subconscious thing, because sometimes I didn't even think about it. I just wake up and it's like, body feels heavy, just feels sad, can't smile, just everything just seems off about the day. And it's, I have to learn to process it. Although I can say I'm getting better than I was before.
Now I'm going to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Because you asked me a question, is there such a time as a time frame that response should change?
Yeah.
So on November of this year, on that day, what would your desired outcome actually be? How would you like to honor your father? How would you like to celebrate him on that day that would actually bring you joy? That would actually bring you joy on that day. So if you could figure that out, then you could change your day.
Yeah, definitely. What would I like that day? Just a day of peace, of just, not going back through that cycle, It's just,
but that's what I'm saying. You're going to have to, and the thing is, we don't intentionally take charge of our days. We allow ourselves to be driven by emotions. And like you say, we allow ourselves to be driven by our subconscious on so many things in our lives, that if we don't say, hey, I got this plan for this day. This is how this day is going to turn out. No matter all of these other things, no matter what the S is, no matter what the F is, no matter. I am in control of this desired outcome. Like for my husband, my desired outcome every day is peace. Nothing. He knows. He said, nothing is going to disturb my peace. I said, nothing makes my peace negative. Nothing divides my peace. Nothing subtracts from my peace. And I mean, I don't care. The world could be falling down around me, but nothing is going to happen to my peace. And so that's why I say, on that day, what does that outcome look like to you? And what does it mean for everybody else? You're going to have to say, this is what's required for me to have this desired outcome today.
Wow. Okay. Awesome.
And that's why I say, if it starts off with a moment, like when something rises up, say, okay, this is against my desired outcome. I'm not getting ready to let nothing take away from it. What do I need to do to add back to my desired outcome?
Wow.
So you think about that?
I will. I'm going to be intentional about that, because I'm putting that I want to shift that dynamic.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. We're not intentional. We allow grief to get in the seat and drive us whichever way we want grief to take us, instead of saying, okay, grief, you get back in your place. I know you're going to be with me, but I'm not going to let you drive me.
Bingo.
So we want this. This is just too valuable. We want everybody out there to be able to get in contact with you. Because I know this is a much needed service that is really, this is like peak time, which is, of course, you don't want to say peak time for something that is so emotional and can be very sad and traumatic. But how can people actually reach out to you for your services?
You can text me at 678-718-5019 grief. And when you do that, I will actually send you a link to all of these healthy grief conversations that are already pre-recorded, where you can listen to some of the dialogue and how to begin this process. And then once you begin that, if you want to reach out and do additional work with us, I actually have a link on that page where you can actually schedule an appointment. So I definitely want you to get a feel for me. I want you to see what I'm talking about. And I can promise you this, if you don't want to hear about God, I'm not the person for you to call. So if you're going to tell me that up front, because I've had people who invited us to things and told us we couldn't talk about God. So I was like, well, you don't want me to talk, because God is going to be there with me now. So if you don't want to talk about God, and if you don't want to talk about how you transition according to the Spirit, according to God's word, I am not the person, and you don't even need to text me grief, because in those healthy grief conversations are talking about how we transition through that according to our spirit and align that up with, so that's where we can find true peace. And that's what I'm talking about, and that desired outcome of peace. Okay. When we're talking about finding peace in the pain, it's some things in this world you just gonna have to be able to release in order to have true peace that nothing else can steal from you.
Wow.
Okay. Now, do you also have a website or an email address?
I do. It is relationshipservicestation.com. And my email is just Courtney, in front of that, Courtney@relationshipservicestation.com. And we're talking about this peace. We actually have a book called Release to Have Peace. It is actually 8 things that you need to learn how to let go of so that we can have true peace after pain comes. So that is an ebook that you can get. You can either text me or email me, and I can get that book to you.
Okay.
Awesome.
Good. That is great. So what is next for the Smiths?
Ooh. First is to slow my own mind down. Next, that's coming up for September is actually, we're going to be starting a live call, Transparent Thursdays, because I think a lot of times in the grief world, we aren't very transparent about the different stages we go through. And it's going to be some men as well as some women who have experienced some loss, and how they're loving themselves so they can experience love after love like us. And I don't mean getting remarried. I mean just loving yourself, loving your kids, loving your space that you're in. So it's that transparent space, so we can just have those conversations with people who have lost.
Wow.
So
that is awesome. So you said Transparent Thursdays, and they can contact you to get the ebook on grief, because I believe that this information is truly impacting the listeners. This is some much needed information. I'm sure you might have seen in the comments, someone they were talking about the fact that this was much needed. It's a great support for marriages. So we really, really want to thank you, Fulton and Courtney, for just taking this time to be with us tonight, to be able to pour into our listeners. And just looking through the comments, it was resonating, because someone was saying, hey, this is speaking to me, that the world needs to hear this message. So you guys keep doing what you're doing. We are so honored that you just took the time to spend time with us this evening and to pour into the listeners and into the Marriage Can Win community, and just helping them to be able to find the peace in their pain. So you guys make sure that we left the information up there. Make sure you text grief to the number 678-718-5019.
And before we go, do you have any last advice to those who are listening?
Did you want me to let you have it?
Nah, let me say this. This is going to be a real shorty, and this is very important. And this is always like on my statement, I always got a closing thought.
Your real talk.
Yes. And in relationship, this is very important. This will be running into a lot of issues, especially in the leaving party. One went to heaven and just left the other. We have to, when your wife or your husband say, baby, you need to learn this system that I'm on, or vice versa. That's very important. I mean, when I say learn the system, say for example, your wife doing everything for you, paying all the bills, doing all the errand running, taking care of all your personal business, and you just out working all the time. You don't have time, none of that. And then she was to pass, then everything you was out in the ocean. And it's very important for the couples to get together and mingle together and get used to what they're doing and know what they're going hand in hand, because when one leave this planet, then that'll be less stress off you. That's very important. That's very important, because you don't know what's going on. You don't know what kind of life insurance they got, what they got. You don't know how the house note been playing. You don't know how nothing been paid, because you was involved in one thing. So it's very important for the husband and wife to mingle together when all transactions being going together, when you everything will be on the same page.
That is excellent and excellent advice. And so we really appreciate having you guys on tonight. And I know this has been a touchy and maybe emotional show tonight, but it's much needed. And we want to let all of our Marriage Can Win community know that, remember, you can always catch us also on the Love Radio Network every Tuesday night at 9 o'clock. And then for the Marriage Can Win show. And then Friday and Saturday night at 8 o'clock, we have Date Night with the Holics right before Midnight Love. And that's Friday night at 8 o'clock and Saturday night at 8 o'clock. Right?
All right. So we just want to thank all of our listeners for joining us. If you're listening live or listening to the replay, just be mindful of the fact that you can be the change that you want to see in your relationship. Absolutely. So until next time, we love you guys. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
We want to thank you for joining us today on our broadcast.
Let's keep the conversation going. You can connect with us via Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or subscribe to our YouTube channel under Marriage Can Win.
Also, you can join us 24/7 on our Marriage Can Win podcast at www.themarriagecanwinshow.com, and also connect to us at marriagescanwin.com.
Remember, you can be the change you want to see in your relationship. Until next time, see you soon.